The fastest way to kill a poetry performance is to be generic. The fastest way to kill a dream is to suffocate it. Squeeze out every last breath, wedge it between the words realistic and unattainable, wrap it in blankets of self-doubt and tell it, it has no place here. Ostracize and outcast until no one recognizes its face or speaks its name, kill off passion. Make sure that if the dream ever dares to show its face here again, the dream has no friends and nowhere to stay, so when they tell you, you can be anything you want to be. They mean something within reason, within the constructs of a society that dictates what is acceptable. Find a job that is acceptable. Silence your passion, watch your dreams like a silent movie on repeat. When I tell them I'm a poet, when I tell them I am a poet, they look at me like a failed business venture. A sorry, we can't meet with you, call us back when you have a stronger proposal. Poets and entrepreneurs both know convention is just convenience we use to convince ourselves that our dreams are worthless, that we are worth less than is customary, convicting us with no judge and a fact-lacking jury. Your Honor, I move to dismiss the motion of the notion of the continuous, quote, status quo. You can't quell my concern. Yes, you can direct quote me on that. Let's recap. They say they like my flow, but I know that it means that we object to this rejection. Let the record show we know it is never about the final destination. It is about how badly we want to get there. This is for people who want to get there. The underdogs, who know they can beat the odds when the deck is clearly stacked against them. These are people who know it can happen when muggles believe in magic. They look to new horizons like Frodo leaving the Shire, scared but determined. They are not misfits, they are perfectly placed apostrophes. The difference between Y-O-U apostrophe R-E and your this is about survivors like us. Skin grown thick like armor, riding through life like a battlefield. We are knuckles bruised from knocking on doors that said they'd never open because our ideas were never good enough. But the same people rejecting us are the same people who use the flower crown filter and forget that Snapchat was a startup. Those who stuff the makers of change like monsters in boxes and bedtime stories, forced to roam around under cover of darkness. The ones who forgot how sleep feels because their dreams are more important than rest. No wonder they say 2 a.m. was made for the artists. We know this is not the quickest way to become famous. It is about looking at what is and figuring out how to change it. It is about life slapping you across the face and you screaming back, I got this. This is me. This is me being asked to spell the word unnecessary in the 6th grade spelling bee, replacing a C with an S, 2 S's with a C, tripping over my words, not seeing what I was saying, stuttering off the stage in shame and coming back. A slam queen, this is for him. Who knows his app can revolutionize the way we see business. Saves his allowance because investors won't take a chance on someone armed with just a dream and a business plan under the age of 19. This is for her. With a passion that can outshine the stars in a voice like an anthem. We've lost too many stars to this life's brutal clenched fist. This is not a motivational speech. This is a call to create communities of creators, engineers of ideas. It is knowing that no amount of training and social conditioning can change what you believe in, so open your arms. Leave your hearts out like a welcome mat. Turn on the porch lights. It's been a starless night for far too long. Let the dreams know. Let the dreams know. It's time to come home. Salama. Thank you. So I'm Afra Atiq. I know they tell you to snap if you hear something you like, but I don't mind applause. So if you hear something you love, please applaud. It lets me know that I'm doing a good job. I love spoken word poetry. I'm a spoken word poet, and spoken word basically is poetry that demands to be experienced. There's something about spoken word that leaps off the page and it comes to the stage, and it's meant to be experienced as a holistic, artistic, just involvement. And it's something that I love. I mean, the only thing that it's food and spoken word poetry. There's really nothing in the middle. And spoken word poetry, I mean, that's the conventional definition, but let's face it, there's nothing conventional about me at all. And I tried to figure out a definition that wasn't as conventional, something that was different. And so I started looking, and the most beautiful definition that I found for spoken word poetry is, a lot of people say it's a shi'r al-mantuq, but I prefer to call it a shi'r al-hur. That literally translates to free verse poetry, but what I love about it is that it's not actually free verse poetry. So a shi'r al-hur is a shi'r اللي تحرر من الوزن والقافية. And so it's poetry that has been liberated from the confines of meter and rhyme. How amazing is that? When I started doing poetry, I had this idea, as many people do, that it's something new, and then I'm doing something kharij al-ma'loof, and this is me, and I'm gonna be on stage, and they're gonna clap for me, and yay, and you know, and we're all gonna get fed afterwards, obviously. But there are a lot of people who think that spoken word poetry is new, and I would respectfully disagree with that, because it's not new to the region. If you look at people like Badr Shakr Sayyab, if you look at Nazik al-Malaika, these are people who have been practicing this art form of free verse poetry for a very long time within the region. So I'm very proud and blessed and humbled to be part of that legacy and that continuing journey. And so when I started doing spoken word poetry, I started talking about, you know, you think big. They tell you to think big. Don't think this big, think that big. Think big enough that you can't even fit your idea into a room, and you would never want to fit your idea into a room anyways. And so I started writing about all of the things that bothered me about the world, and I started talking about the big issues and the things that I thought my poetry was going to change. And what happened was I started losing myself. It became very externalized, and it was me looking at these issues, talking about them, and I look at these poems and I think, okay, that's great, we need to talk about these issues, but where is Afra? Afra وينها? Afra شو تسوي? Afra شو يخصها في هالموضوع? And so I started telling my story, and I wanted to talk about things that were relatable, and so I went back to my childhood. I'm a quintessential middle child, if that tells you anything about me. And I wanted to write a poem about my childhood, so this is a poem about my childhood. And if you hear something you'd like, please snap or clap. أنا إذا شو اسمه بتصل فيك وأنت إذا هذا عطني خبر. جملتين لم يفهمها إلا الشعب العربي. When I think about childhood, I think about innocence. I think about backyard swings and tire things, the good old days, أيام الطيبين. It has been more than 10 years since I've seen the inside of a classroom, more than 15 since I've seen a blackboard and chalk. I remember the days when we had a blackboard and chalk. I remember when, if you couldn't talk the talk, you needed to walk the walk in the playground. I remember when you couldn't wait to get to 4th grade because that meant you didn't have to write with pencils, you were then upgraded to pens. I remember when أكبر همنا كان أنك ما تقدر تكتب فوق الكاركتر بقلم حبر سائل، لازم قلم جاف. Passing notes in class. Passing notes in class. Are you my friend? Circle yes or no, circle yes or no, circle yes or no. I always wrote maybe, back to the days when punishment was Afra, go stand at the back of the class, turn around, take 1 foot off the ground and stay there. And I'd stay there. But as soon as the teacher would turn his back, I would say, Ustad Ahmed, Tara, no one cares about calculus, we're never going to use it again, don't lie to us. We talked through MSN Messenger. And nothing says embarrassment like your first username. And yes, I'm looking at you, Majrouh Ras Al Khayma, Cool Guy 732, Walid Dar, and Bint Dubai. Weekends were special. Weekends were for watching TV. At the birthday parties, when the cake with Captain Majid came out, nobody paused to say, لحظة, بحطها في snap. We learned about relationships from Korea and Topanga. And let's face it, everyone wanted to have an Uncle Jesse. Entertainment meant watching TV and not counting likes and reposts. Drama was bold and the beautiful. We watched VHS on tiny screens, and Will Smith was the freshest Fresh Prince. Relationships were authentic. None of this instant love. Insta like, insta good, insta bad, insta tag. Broke my insta heart with his insta love. Now I drown my insta tears in my imaginary insta coffee cup. We played Atari. My dear, dear Atari, Xbox has nothing on you, and iPad can't compare with your worth. You're better than Sega, PS234, Nintendo Cube, N64, all rolled into one. And my favorite song always started with dun 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 dun. Nokia phones taught us about pain when it says جزء من النص مفقود. Some text may be missing, something is missing, stricken from the record. For the record, I think it's okay that Zayn left One Direction. It was we survived the breakup of Boyzone, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. We remember when once upon a time Justin Timberlake had hair. Because we were the kings and queens of invention. We were 90s kids. We were the generations of tape recorders and Walkmans before there were MP3s and DVDs. We were the nights of nighttime Are You Afraid of the Darks? We were the graphic t-shirts which may or may not have had Spice Girls on them. Before the plain white tees showed up, we are the Jeel of Crystal Maze. We have the memories stored on floppy disks. We are viewfinders. We are birthday parties in Hardee's. We are Hayya ila al-manahil. We are Iftah ya Simsim abwabak nahnu al-atfal. The atfal have now become the atfal, of course, to be reckoned with for all the world to see. We were Jeel al-Taybeen. So, if you are like me and you're feeling slightly old after hearing all of these things, it was a good time. And I think that times were simpler. And you know, when you're younger, they tell you things like, how many times have you heard this? Follow your heart. Go confidently towards the direction of your dreams. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Nobody tells you that it's one step and then it's 90 stop signs. And they tell you to shoot for the moon. They tell you all of these motivational things, but nobody actually tells you that the reality of going after your dreams and finding something that you love is actually, it's beautiful, but it's also painful and very, very ugly. Nobody tells you that when you follow your dreams, I had a very corporate, cushy job, and I left that job to become a poet. And so now I'm a full-time poet, and I've never been happier. But it hasn't been easy. Nobody tells you that when you decide to follow your dreams and pursue your passions, you are going to end up with less friends than you started out with. Nobody tells you that there are going to be days when you don't even want to get out of bed. Nobody's going to tell you that things are maybe not going to work out. You're going to hit 75 speed bumps before you get like, I don't know, this much of like normalcy, and then you go back to the speed bumps. Nobody tells you this, that there are no green lights in the land of stop signs. And I'm not here to discourage you from pursuing what it is that you want to pursue. I love poetry, and I love performance as much as I love food, and that was very hard for me to admit. But the thing is, when you find that thing that makes you happy, and sometimes it's a person, I haven't found him yet, but I am told that there will be a person. But when you find those things that make you happy, it's completely worth it. And I think with poetry, people often underestimate poetry. How many of you walked in here today thinking, oh, it's poetry, it's going to be really boring? You can tell me, it's okay. Just like one hand in the audience, okay. I know that there's more, but it's okay. But the thing is, we underestimate the weight of words, so I'm going to share a personal story and then end with a poem. The personal story, which nobody before TEDxFujairah has heard. When I was 12 years old, long time ago, when I was 12 years old, there was a boy. And this boy was talking to one of his friends, and he said, oh, we heard after school, by the buses, we heard that you like Afra. 12 years old. You know what the boy said? The boy said, I could never love Afra, she's ugly. 12 years old. I have carried that with me for the past 20 years. So I will defy anyone who tells me that words are just words, because they are never just words. But you know what happened is I've carried that weight for 20 years, and then I wrote a poem about it, 20 years later. And so I wrote a poem about it, and I performed it, and I put it on, I think I put it on YouTube, or I don't remember where I put it, but I put it out there. And when you perform poetry, it's like bearing your soul. It is literally like taking your soul and putting it here. This is my soul. And I put it out there, and I get this message on social media from this girl, and she says, I went through that. And I didn't know what to say. I thought it was a one-off thing. I thought it was me. And in her thing, she says, I went through that, and it helped me that you were talking about this, and I know that I'm not alone. I know that I'm not the only one. And this is my message. If you forget anything that I have said to you in the last, I don't know how long it's been, the last 10 minutes, if you do not remember anything else from what I tell you or what I say or you laugh or you snap in poetry, remember this. You are important. Your stories are important. Your words matter. You matter. And this is what that girl told me. She said, you showed me that I matter. And I cried for a couple of hours after that. And I have her letter, like I printed it up and I framed it. And so on days when I feel like I can't do this and I don't want to do this and I don't want people to see my soul and I don't want people to know that the past 20 years I've been, thinking about Flan bin Flan who said he could never love me. He's not cute, by the way. And it's a constant reminder that things are worth it and that your words matter. And so I want to leave you with this last poem. It's called An Open Letter to Cancer. Poetry forces you to confront things that you would never normally confront. So this is an open letter to cancer. It's a very personal poem. It's a very special poem because it is an award-winning poem. It's a poem that won the Abu Dhabi Music and Art Foundation Creativity Award, and it was the only poem that's ever won this award. And for me, it's like, it reminds me, this was my poetic validation. This was the sign that said, okay, you're fine. Things are gonna suck for a while, but it's fine. Things get better. Get up and do it. Get up and do what people tell you can't do. They tell you you're not pretty, or you don't look the same way you're supposed to look. You're not following the right path. You're not married to the right person. You don't have the right hobbies. You don't have the right last name. You don't have the right connections. You don't drive the right car. You don't drive. Whenever anyone tells you that, you remember that you matter. And these words matter. And so I'm going to leave you with this poem. It's called An Open Letter to Cancer. I know it is customary to begin letters with dear, but there is nothing dear about you. There were no warning signs or symptoms. There was only awkward silence. But silence can have decibels louder than the speakers of the boombox, the block party, the next block over. I'm not sure if the doctors were handing out a treatment plan or a life sentence to my grandmother every word, a conviction talking about odds and options like we can opt out when we all know cancer never really leaves. It hovers above our heads like a fallen halo. It waits inside our bones until it thinks we've forgotten. Funny how cancer cells also come with an unfair verdict. Funny how they say laughter is the best medicine. Funny how I love nothing more than laughing through poems and snaps on stages, but I hate nothing more than thinking about life in stages, stages of grief, stages of her life. Stage 1, we caught it early. We can fix it. She can be one of the 6 in 10 that makes it out alive. We've replaced dinner conversations with doxorubicin and chemotherapy. No family should ever have to know these words so well that they roll off the tips of their tongue. Stage 2, we're still optimistic. Maybe we can shrink it now. It's surgical partial mastectomy, 2 rounds of chemo. They told us you hate the light, so we increase the radiation, but we still smile through the pain. When people ask about the family, we say, we're fine. But fine is the most not fine word. It is what you say when things are absolutely not fine. Fine is the elephant in the room. It is the problem that never comes with a solution. Stage 3. You've taken a liking to her body, spread from her left breast through her lymph nodes, full mastectomy and chemo to stop you before you leak into her bloodstream, but you've already grabbed hold of her throat and she can't speak. But that Sunday she woke up crying and none of us could understand why until hours later we got the phone call about my uncle being killed in the line of duty and not even you could stop her from feeling. Stage 4. Pray. We made her more comfortable, got ready to say goodbye. The doctors say it's terminal. Funny how they say terminal like an airport terminal, like she's about to go on vacation, only she's probably never coming back. I wish I could sever my forever and stitch it through all the parts of her the doctors say they can't fix. Life is full of contradictions. They say you always remember the first and last words you speak. The last words my father ever spoke to his mother were on the day that she died. He said, enough is enough. Let's take her home. I know it is customary to end letters with sincerely. But you, Cancer, there is not one sincere thing about you.
Oh, wow. Yes, I think well deserved. Louder, come on. TEDxFujairah, let me hear you. Wow. Man. Standing, sunk that in. Let that sink in. Beautiful crowd, man. Sarahatan.
Remember that you matter, all of you, as much as food. Thank you.
Wow. One more round of applause for my sister, Afra Atiq. Thank you. Wow.